Nixon's desire to keep the ongoing talks with the Chinese secret extended even to his own Secretary of State.
Secretary Rogers and I were with Nixon on this trip to represent the State Department. We were cut out of almost all of the specifics of the negotiation.
Behind closed doors, the two countries were crafting a joint communique, a statement that would both recognize Mao's claim to Taiwan and honor the American commitment to defend Taiwan.
So we began the negotiation on the communique.
We had to say that, work out a formula that would give Taiwan a separate status while at the same time not negating the position of the People's Republic of China that Taiwan was a part of the PRC.
We said, to us, it's a principle. You cannot put in the communique that you will continue to protect Taiwan while establishing relationship with China.
We realized we had to adjust our relationship on Taiwan.
Nixon could not publicly desert a longtime ally for the sake of his new relationship with China. And he had not come this far to walk away without an agreement. With negotiations still underway, the Chinese took their American guests to the ballet. Nixon's private notes, handwritten in preparation for his meeting with Zhou Enlai, confirm his intention to back away from Taiwan. And he referred to Taiwan and Vietnam as irritants in the way of the new course. Taiwan. Our policy is one China. Taiwan is part of China. Won't support Taiwan independence. Will seek normalization. Nixon added, but if it appears we sold out Taiwan, left, egged on by Soviets, and right, we'll make it an issue. No secret deals. The ballet was written by Mao's wife, Jiang Jing, a hardliner. Nixon found her unpleasantly abrasive and aggressive. Why didn't you come to China before? She asked. The delegations finally found artful words for their communique. The document stated that all Chinese on both sides of the Taiwan Strait believe there is one China, and that Taiwan is a part of China. It did not address who should govern this one China.
We've approved the communique with the Chinese. The President approves it in the middle of the night. Chinese Politburo approve it on the Chinese side.
Only on the flight from Beijing to their next stop, Hangzhou, were members of the State Department shown the communique.
And I saw a very serious flaw that I couldn't believe had not been seen by people up the line. And when I showed this to Rogers, he could immediately see what a terrible blunder this was. We said that we will continue to give our support to our mutual security treaties with Japan, Korea. It said nothing about our treaty obligations to the Republic of China on Taiwan.
Rogers and Green knew that a firestorm of protest would result if the communique stayed as it was. But they also knew the negotiations had been concluded.
You could feel that although everybody was smiling, everybody, Nixon still did the tour of the park. You could see all those pictures of looking at the goldfish, and Kissinger and Nixon still, cracked jokes. but nobody felt easy.
Rogers held his tongue until he returned to his villa. There, he summoned his whole departmental team.
When I got there to their villa, they were heatedly, very heatedly talking about something. I'm sure, they were taking some action,
Rogers tried to get Nixon, and he got Haldeman on the line. And Haldeman said, the president is sleeping, he's tired, and can't be disturbed. But Rogers said, this is a matter of critical importance, immediate importance.
They probably shouldn't have said anything in front of the Chinese, but they were too excited that they couldn't really stop themselves.
This is outrageous. The Secretary of State, the President's principal advisor under the Constitution on Foreign Affairs, not having access to the President at a critical moment.
They were saying that we cannot accept that. How could it be that it was agreed without letting us know?
Following that evening's banquet, Rogers confronted Kissinger.
And this is where the explosion took place.
There were some very spirited discussions between Rogers and Kissinger.
Nixon was unhappy at the fact that his people had not given him a complete, wrapped-up final communique, and he was stamping around in his underwear, saying things in a rather loud tone of voice.
There's a pounding on my door at 2 o'clock in the morning. All hell's broken loose in the guest house, and you're the cause of it. And I said, what's going to happen? He says, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know the president is furious.
The president was insistent, and even Kissinger understood that we couldn't have a split in our delegation in terms of American press coverage, and therefore he, with great reluctance, realized he had to go at least through the motions of trying to get some changes.
Kissinger was sent back to the negotiating table with the vice foreign minister.
The State Department refused to back down. All America's commitments to its allies in the region must be mentioned, including the commitment to Taiwan. The Chinese negotiator would have none of it.
So finally, he said to Dr. Kissinger, he said, well, maybe we should stop here, If we cannot agree on a communique, for the Chinese, that's okay. We can do without a communique.
I have always found in dealing with the Chinese that complete frankness is the better course, since they're probably smarter than we are anyway. If I try to outmaneuver them, I'm bound to be in difficulties.
And so what it ended up with, that all references to mutual defense treaties were eliminated, and that was okay for the Chinese. They accepted that.
But was it acceptable to the State Department? Zhou Enlai joined Nixon on his flight to Shanghai, the last stop of the trip. He was aware of the rift in the American camp. If Rogers publicly broke rank to protest, the Republican right might desert Nixon in an election year. China might lose its new friend. Zhou Enlai decided to act.
He said, this is actually the internal affairs of the Americans, but it looks that we probably can help them a little bit to solve their internal problems.
He realized that the president had played very fast and loose with the State Department.
For the premier to visit a foreign minister's room broke all protocol.
We knocked on the door. When they opened the door, they could never imagine at the doorway, Zhou Enlai appeared.
I hid my surprise and said, Premier Zhou, welcome. What can we do for you today? And he said, I'd like to see Secretary Rogers. Is he in? I said, yes. And so I went and knocked on the door, said, Secretary Rogers, Premier Zhou is here. Oh, he said, I'll be right out.
Zhou Enlai said that it's so important. Our two countries have come together, and this is the major thing. And we hope that Mr. Rogers would understand that and would fully give the support.
When Rogers saw Premier Zhou to the door, he was obviously a happier man.
Rogers agreed to support the communique. At the closing banquet, the president was triumphant.
Nixon got up rather tipsy from all the toasts that they were drinking at these banquets, and drinking this fierce liquor called Mao Đài.
He really made a speech on the spot of the moment. That was the most difficult part for the interpreter, of course.
We have been here a week. This was the week that changed the world.
And I thought either he was drunk or it was a bit of hyperbole. But he was right. It was. It had tremendous impact on things. It was a confirmation, in a way, that we were abandoning this whole notion of the monolithic communist bloc.
I express my appreciation to my Chinese voice, to Mrs. Chang. I listened to her translation. She got every word right.
We felt that he had been overcome by the delirium of the event.
As Nixon said his last goodbyes, public reaction in the U.S. to the Shanghai communique was mixed. One headline read, "They got Taiwan, we got egg rolls."
There was a definite undercurrent on Air Force One as we flew back, where Nixon and Kissinger were worried about the reaction to this communique.
Were so against orthodoxy and, in a sense, so dangerous vis-a-vis the Taiwan lobby or China lobby.
I made it plain to everybody that the American conservatives were going to raise holy hell if indeed this evolved into a dismissal of Taiwan.
But Americans who had shared the president's journey on television supported Nixon's breakthrough. And gradually, the success of Nixon's new course could be seen. In May, the Russians signed the Strategic Arms Limitation Treaty. For the first time, the two nations agreed to limits on nuclear weapons. China secured a place in the world community. By the 1980s, there was a curious new slogan in communist Beijing: "To get rich is glorious." Taiwan would flourish economically and retain its tenuous hold on independence. In February 1972, the New York Times wrote that no matter what else occurred, Richard Nixon would always be remembered for his journey to China. But his achievement would soon be overshadowed. In June, the Watergate burglars were arrested, and the scandal that would bring down the Nixon presidency had begun.